And the first of our speakers is Kostiantyn Korsun from Berezha Security. He will be speaking of whether being a law-abiding citizen or a free citizen of Ukraine. Thank you for your introduction. I am Kostiantyn Korsun from Berezha Security, and I've been working for the industry of cyber security and safety. Here we have people from the telecom industry, so I would like to give the kind of external view on the issue. My presentation is not related to the presentation of Maxim Tudev. We are just using the same facts. So 2 weeks ago we had actually 7.6 thousands of operators and providers of telecommunication services. The term Internet Service Provider is not existent in the Ukrainian legislation. We have operators and providers of telecommunication services. So this is quite a saturated market, lots of competitors, low prices, good quality, and the government always tries to intrude somehow in this business to filter traffic, to trace content, to introduce some kind of magic solutions. And also I would emphasize the situation of Gov.ua domain. It is difficult to survive for this business. Of course, just like in every business, you need to have more friends and fewer enemies, and you want to attract more clients and not to lose the old clients. You have to pretend to be as loyal to the government as possible and to fight against the government together. So the first issue here, all of this started from 2017. We have already mentioned this presidential decree, which banned a number of Russian resources, the content of which did not meet the interests of national security of Ukraine, but also that presidential decree was against the constitution of Ukraine and many other pieces of Ukrainian legislation. After that, there were 2 other decisions by the National Council of Security and Defense concerning blockage of resources from the so-called Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics and the Crimea as well. And later we got quite a strong wave of attacks on the freedom of internet. A good illustration of that is the draft law of 6688. There were lots of interesting issues there, but the 2 issues that were extremely important for the community, this was the possibility to block websites according to the decisions of the judges in the courts. There are thousands of them in Ukraine, and especially on the district level, people are quite unprofessional, and the system is non-transparent. The courts and law enforcement. One more thing that was being suggested was the so-called deep package inspection, deep analysis of the traffic that would enable tracking of the users. These are very expensive solutions. As far as I remember, they start from $300,000, and it was planned to make the providers to buy all that equipment. And of course, not every provider is ready for such a huge spending. This legislation was overcome by the efforts of the community, by the activists. There was quite a wide discussion, but in exactly a year, this same draft law with the same number, slightly changed, was again resubmitted to the parliament, with the hope that people have forgotten about that old story and let us now introduce it again. And again, this wasn't successful. The protests were quite vocal, and they had to recall that draft law once again. There is still a risk that this draft can come back, the name can change, the number can change, but we have no one that could guarantee us it won't come back. So all of this happened in 2018, and now we have an example of 2019, a new wave. So the government decided you do not want the procedure of blocking resources outside of the courts. Okay, let the courts block the websites. And this was the case in Kharkiv. The judge named Bashko, who made it obligatory for the providers to close access to the website that sold drugs. And this is the text of that court ruling. It is completely incomprehensible to arrest the intellectual property rights resulting from the use of the website. Does it mean that you get some property right as a reader of a website? So if you watch a Hollywood movie, you are becoming the co-owner of the intellectual rights? Even if you are somehow involved in the issue of that intellectual property, how come this is related to the distribution of operation from this website? Again, she's calling on internet providers to block this access, but internet providers simply do not exist in the Ukrainian legislation. And then also we can see that the rest of the sentence is a bit unclear. It says to block access to them. Who are them? And also, it says to close to them access on every level, the informationological and hardware level. I sort of understand what they mean, but this could be some kind of conversation between us and we would understand each other, but this is the decision of the governmental institution, and we sort of have to fulfill it. So what exactly did they mean? Now, that was the turn of the judge named Volk, the ill-famous judge who was caught in different corrupt schemes and schemes against Maidan activists. So he blocked 19 different websites, such as Enigma.ua and blogs correspond.net. with millions of users. This was the decision of the judge to block all the 19 websites with those millions of users. Why? That's because on each of those resources there was just one news about some of the corrupt schemes with the involvement of some officials. The text was basically copied from the decision of the Kharkiv court, but there was one significant difference. Instead of telling all internet providers to do this, they have provided the exact names and addresses and the CEOs of the 13 providers, the major providers in the opinion of the judge. We do not know what the criteria that were used by the judge were, but for some reason the judge make it obligatory for just 13 internet service providers, which are the largest in the opinion of this particular judge. And now the same judge made another court ruling against 6 internet casinos. The text is more or less the same with this stupid intellectual property right by means of block and access, and also this was about 6 internet casinos. And something that is extraordinary, the judge from Mykolaiv decided to block Cloudflare. So this is something indeed extraordinary that demands respect. The next goes YouTube, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. So this shows how the judges are knowledgeable about the technical issues. This is a screenshot from the website of the state agency. Cloudflare. USA, San Francisco. Wonderful. As for this NKRZ website, first, in no court ruling we can see any obligation for this state service itself. Sometimes there are demands for the internet service providers in general. Sometimes the decisions about some particular internet service providers, but for some reason they publish these court rulings, and the legal power of those publishings on that website, I think, is inexistent, because is there an obligation for each internet service provider to read that website on a regular basis? And also it's interesting that this website does not work on Saturdays. It's some kind of Sabbath, and you can see how this website looks on Saturdays, and this is a response from one of the officials. They say that they have some maintenance work, and if we explain the reason why we are doing that, this will eliminate the reason itself. So basically they tell us not to intervene with their work. All of us are law-abiding citizens. We want to be rich and happy, and we want to pay taxes and enjoy life. If anyone is against, please raise your hand. I want to have a conversation with you later. Okay, we will have a conversation later, but I am a law-abiding citizen, and the majority of you here. But what do we do if I get such an official letter? If I were a CEO of an internet service provider, and it is an official letter from an important governmental institution, I see that this ruling or this text is absurd. Like when I read these language from the court ruling. It was stupid. But there are three possible ways of behavior in such a situation. First is to implement it to the extent that I can understand. I do not know how do I block that, by IP, by domain, by DNS. I can do it to the extent that I have understood. For instance, I would block access to this IP address. It is very easy to bypass that limitation, but I have implemented the requirement. Another option is to ask the court for explanations, saying that, dear court, I am not discussing how absurd your decision is or how legitimate it is. I would like to know just to, I would like to know how exactly I would have to block the internet resource. Of course, without the Chinese firewall or any similar solution, it is impossible to block any site. And in this case, you are contacting the court and asking them to provide the explanations. The court will, of course, give no answer, or will give an answer which is even more crazy. But while you are in this correspondence, you kind of have some grounds to not implement what they are asking you to do. And the last pass, the pass of summarize, it's the decision to fight against such illegitimate decisions. And I would like to thank Kyivstar, Vodafone Ukraine, and the Digital Security Lab, which are having their cases in the court. The system is fighting against them. We do not want to have this court hearing, but these are the three options we have. One more story that I'll share here is quite interesting. There are several actions in there are several parts in this theater play. So taking care of safety of the governmental institutions, our government has invested the so-called comprehensive system of internet security. Let us remember this language. To increase the safety of governmental institutions, they decide to ban any contracts with the providers who do not have this comprehensive system. So it's quite a noble goal to improve the safety for governmental institutions, right? But actually, this availability of this wonderful comprehensive system, the only thing it does, it protects the provider from any checks that are faced by internet service providers, and it also takes from 6 to 12 months to prove that you have this system. The market, for some reason, followed, for those who have been working with governmental clients for years, for decades, they, of course, do not want to lose those governmental clients, and they understand that just another business will get this state client. They are forced to implement this system. Not everyone is brave as Maxim from NetAssist. They started to create create those systems, to pay the money, etc., etc. But there is a very important turn in this story. There was a group of activists who launched some primitive scanners who used open sources, open ports to check what is happening with the safety of the clients using the services of those providers which have installed this comprehensive internet security system, and which is proven by papers. There was a press conference given when the results of this research were ready. So I will show just a couple of slides. They had a half-an-hour-long presentation of those screenshots. This is something that is publicly available. They did not do any hacking. Nothing is illegal here. The guys just found these kinds of data from the atomic energy system. This is Lviv water supply system. This is Ukrainian post service. Those are the ones using a protected ISP. This is the famous Huliver trade center here in Kyiv. Again, everything is open, everything is available to everyone. And they have discovered that what was one more important detail, by the way. After that press conference, some of the providers got offended with the activists, and their argument was quite simple. The provider is introducing the comprehensive safety system for their own safety. And the safety of the users is their own business, and it's not the issue of the provider through which you are using the internet. This is quite logical, of course, but if we come back to this initial idea that this was being introduced to improve the safety of governmental clients, and in fact, it's totally the opposite. This new system is not being enhanced by the comprehensive security system, which costs huge money and huge effort and huge time. The only beneficiary of that is someone who invented this wonderful tool and someone who made the providers to pay for that. Now a bit about Gov.ua domain zone. The story about fight between Hostmaster and the Ukrainian government would be an exciting novel. It's been there for over a decade, and lots of different officials tried to influence this domain zone in every way, in such a way that they would be getting money, but they would not be responsible for anything. So Gov.ua is the governmental domain, and this is more or less what we have right now. We have this scooter, something that is not exciting for the elder brother who is already interested in girls, and the younger brother is interested in the scooter but is too small to use the scooter. So the Ukrainian government wants to use Gov.ua, but they do not know how to manage Gov.ua. So this is something that is not profitable to Hostmaster. Do we have a representative of Hostmaster here? Yeah, is it correct? Yeah, it's not profitable. It is consuming resources to one way, to some extent at least, and the state wants to govern it, but it doesn't know how to do that. So here you can see this on the illustration. And also it's like a case without a handle. which is inconvenient to use and which you are just not willing to throw away, because how can we do without gov.ua in Ukraine? And also, as you can see on this chessboard, the situation is critical. Also, what is happening in the gov.ua domain zone? Here you can download Asian porn. Here you can buy some furniture for a bar. Here you can buy a watch. Here you can buy an evening dress. And all of that is happening under gov.ua domain. So this is the situation which is unfortunately happening. Why I'm sharing this story? Well, this falls in line with what my colleagues shared before. I would like to encourage you to think about freedom. Freedom is more important than money. Why do you need money if you are in the prison? If we look at the example of Russia, people are very rich, some of them, but they are nervous and they do not have any good sleep at night. So today you are being loyal to the government, but tomorrow the government is taking away your business. The freedom is much more important than money right now. And using this opportunity, using this stage, I would like to challenge you to think about freedom first and only then about the integrity and profitability of your business. Life is complicated, but it has to be free, and we need to fight for that. And the guy whom we see on the $100 bill, some time ago, he told that if you refuse the freedom for some kind of limited safety, you are not worthy of both freedom and safety. And this is a brief information about me. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Hello, it is Maxim Tuliev from NetAssist. I've got two comments. The first idea is a request to the court on how to implement this solution. They provide a very brief reply, implement it in whichever way is suitable to you. And another question is about this special solution that was suggested by the government. The idea, no, I speak about not the protected node. I'm speaking of the comprehensive system of information protection. So I mean the local system that is being introduced at the Internet Service Provider's place. The idea was that there is some client of national interest and it is using some ISP. And if you break the ISP, you would be able to get access to the traffic of that important institution and then to influence that infrastructure that's behind that. So the idea was to certify the provider to make sure that the provider will not be broken, most probably. And this was based on the ISO standard from Europe. This was ISO certificate for the safety of the provider, and of course it does not protect from the bugs of the client itself, but more or less they provide some security for that service provider through which the service is being used. But here it turned into some kind of weird business, I think that they have not completed the goals they have set before them, but the idea itself was good. Thank you for your remark. As far as I know, ISO standards are quite vague. They are just frameworks, and for instance, they state that you need to have this. They do not explain how exactly to do that. They do not know your conditions. These are just framework requirements, so I cannot comment concerning the ISO standard for providers. That's quite an interesting opinion. Like, what was the logic behind the State Communication Committee when they developed this idea? But the fact is, it does not work at all. There were 50 or 60 different slides, of which I chose 3 or 4. Dmitro from Hostmeister, I would like to comment on 2 issues. First, any problems of Gov.ua websites are not the problems of those who administer. And of course, there can be drugs, pornography, etc. And Hostmaster has never had any problems with Gov.ua. Right now, we have this right to use Gov.ua. Yes, we administer this zone, but in fact, we serve as a passive registry, which introduces the records for the state institutions. So it's simply a registry, and it can be regulated by any kind of law or decree. I do not even think that we need a separate law on Gov.ua. Yes, I emphasized exactly this. If the state wants to fully control and administer this domain, they do not do it by that, they do it through Hostmaster. Yes, states may have no DNS servers of its own, no channels for access abroad. So you believe it's a normal situation with Gov.ua? I believe that it is not perfect, but it is 90% okay. There is no conflict about that at all. So once again, I'm not a specialist in this field. I'm just providing external opinion of someone who is not exactly involved in it. So I won't name the people, but there were people from state institutions who worked with us and who did some effort to improve this domain. And it would not be correct to charge any money for that because that's a public domain. We have a press service who, we have a representative of the press service here in this room, and he can provide more detailed information about that. I would like to add a little bit on that. It's been 2 or 3 months that I have not been working for Hostmaster, but if nothing has changed in the company, Hostmaster is not the administrator of the Gov.ua domain. There is an admin contact and a technical contact. And in essence, Hostmaster is a technical contact, but the administrative contacts are representatives of the government, and you can ask Hostmaster about who those people are. There are certain rules. There is also, it seems to me that each registered domain is supported by a letter from the Cabinet of Ministers. You can check out the rules of this domain zone. So Hostmaster is not taking any decisions about what is happening on the Gov.ua domain. So, from the part of the government, we maybe have more than one person, but there is at least one person available for the decision making. And there are also other problems with Gov.ua domain. For instance, quite often the contacts provided are using Mail.ru or other mail services, but again, Host-Master cannot do anything to that because this is something to be managed by the administrative contacts. Yeah, I have the majority of questions to the administrative contact. Hello, I'm Alexandre Samnin from Russia. So you have much less fight for the freedom of internet. Let me share a couple of ideas. First of all, this quote of Benjamin Franklin, it's not popular in Russia anymore. It disappeared very quickly from this discussion. But there are two important things that you, I hope, will take into account. First, please personalize the negative decisions of governmental institutions. So if those were judges, you provided the names. As for the other institutions, you are not given the names. In Russia, we tried to be polite with the government, but the practice showed that these attempts to persuade in such a friendly way are fruitless. Unless we actively and personally criticize the government, they will do their black business even faster. Of course, criticism does not save from them doing the bad thing, but it creates this regret in us if we do not do anything. And also, we can substitute this with another quote. Holocaust was fully legal, but the repressions of Stalin as well. So if we stay just engineers, if we fully follow the law, there are just wonderful historical examples. For instance, the repressions of Joseph Stalin. They can start from something small, from some stupid, funny decisions, but tomorrow this will not be as funny as before. And I hope that you are more successful in your fight for freedom and security than we in Russia. And last brief question. Well, I would like to add a little bit. All the blocked sites were hosted in San Francisco. All of them. I looked through that list. But they also provided domains rather than IP addresses. Yes, so this is why they were blocked. And yesterday we got the court ruling from Mykolaiv. Vodafone managed to prove that the intellectual property is not a proof of that. So yeah, this is one of the many possible legal grounds to cancel such decisions. Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you.